With the 15th pick and with the 26th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Dwayne Haskins, Montez Sweat.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sister. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. So, I wanted to come at you guys with a question about the draft. Obviously, the Redskins hold the number 2 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. There's been a lot of discussion as to what the Redskins should do. There's going to be plenty more as this process is just getting started. We haven't had the Super Bowl yet. Once the Super Bowl is done and we get into the offseason officially and the draft season officially begins, for me, it's already begun with the Senior Bowl, but once we really get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, and we get into the combine, and we get into these pro days, and all of that minutia, you're going to hear even more about what the Redskins, the Redskins are thinking about trading. You're going to hear the Bengals are thinking about taking Chase Young. You're going to hear everything under the sun. But what I want to ask you guys, and this is going to be a question that's going to be really the question for the Redskins as they sit here holding the number 2 pick in the draft, is what to do with number 2. All right. What should the Redskins do with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL Draft? Should they spend it on defensive end Chase Young, a.k.a. the Predator? All right, he will be available. Okay, trust me, Cincinnati isn't taking Chase Young. Okay, you're going to hear that come out a ton before this draft. Cincinnati is really mulling over the decision. It's not even up for debate. They need a quarterback. There are 2 guys that they could possibly love. There's at least one that they are going to be very smitten with. The quarterback position is the most important position in the league. And if you've got a chance to take a game changer, you do that. They're taking a quarterback. So don't listen to anybody that tries to tell you that Cincinnati is thinking about taking Chase Young. That's what they're supposed to say. The Bengals would be remiss if they didn't say that. Keep all options open, but let's be very candid here. They're taking a quarterback, most likely Joe Burrow. Whatever the case may be, the Redskins will be sitting on the clock with Chase Young available to select, and they will have a ton of options at their disposal, one of which may be the fact that they could trade out. Now, this is the thing, and I've heard a whole bunch of people. And I've talked to, let's start here. I've talked to a ton of Redskins fans about this very topic, which is part of the reason I'm doing a video. Another reason why is because it was a hot topic of discussion this week because JP Finley of the Redskins Talk podcast is out in Miami for the Super Bowl. And one of his guests, the very first guest, as a matter of fact, that he had on his show this week was Peter King, a guy that I'm not very fond of, but nonetheless, he is NFL media royalty, okay? I don't love him. He's not my cup of tea, but JP Finley had him on his show, and he pretty much said, hey, I talked to some people at the Senior Bowl, and they think the Redskins have a chance to remake their entire franchise by trading the number 2 overall pick. I said, that sounds good, but I'm good, okay? I'll pass because I think, and he said, and he did say this, but if you think that Chase Young is a Lawrence Taylor type, generational, game-changing, franchise-changing type of pass rusher, then you take him. Forget about all the other picks, which is what I think. Now, what you think, what I think, what someone else thinks, all totally different, maybe the same. I don't know, but that's how I feel. I think he's a total game wrecker, a game changer, a guy that you take and the rest of the league is game planning to stop him for the next decade. That's what I think Chase Young is. If I didn't, then I would be open to trading the number 2 pick. However, I've talked to a ton of Redskins fans on both sides of the fence. Okay, I've talked to enough Redskins fans that feel like Chase Young isn't going to be a savior. He isn't worth the number 2 pick if you can get 3 first-round picks, or really 2 first-round picks. No one's giving up 3 first-round picks, I don't think. All right. No one man is going to come in and change this team around. And I always counter with the Nick Bosa argument that, look, we've been drafting for this very moment to put ourselves in this position. for this very moment that if we were bad enough to get a top flight pick and a top flight player like San Francisco had been doing, they were bad for a while there, and they were just stockpiling first round talents on defense and stockpiling their defense with talented football players. And then you looked up, Nick Bosa fell into their lap at number 2, and the rest is history. And look where they are now. And I'm not saying that they're in the Super Bowl because of Nick Bosa, but that defense is much better because of Nick Bosa. You cannot ignore that. So when I look at that whole argument about Chase Young can't come in here and change the game by himself, you're right, but he can damn sure make a huge difference. All right, a huge difference, a massive difference. But then I've talked to more Redskins fans, many, many more, that are like, to hell with all of that. Take Chase Young at 2. You don't think about it. You turn the card in as soon as you are available to do so, and you move forward. That's how I feel right now. But you would be irresponsible, I believe, if you don't listen to what teams have to say. Because look, if someone is like, yo, I will give you 3 first rounders, 3 seconds, and a 5th, I'm like, you were saying? And especially if that team is somewhere around the top half of the draft. I don't want to move too far back. You know how I feel about that. But if someone's like, yo, I got the 6th pick, I got the 5th pick, I got the 9th pick, I'm willing to trade with you, and I'll give you 3 ones. Not including the one we're swapping. I'm talking about 3 separate ones. Like, I want an insane deal. Like, I already told you, if I'm going to move off of 2, especially if Chase Young's available, you have to be willing to move heaven and earth to get to 2, to move me off of that spot, because of what I think I could potentially be missing out on if I trade you number 2. All right. So I strongly feel like Chase Young is that dude. All right. I strongly believe that he is the predator. All right. And that he is about to come into the league and wipe out quarterbacks until they're extinct. I do feel that way. I do. And so I feel like the Redskins should keep the 2nd pick and draft Chase Young. But there's people out there that feel like you could remake your organization, and what if you get a Robert Griffin III type of trade? And I'm like, you remember what the Rams did with that deal? All right, and all the players that they got? Are any of them even Ram players right now? Or half of them aren't even in the league right now. Isaiah Pede and Janoris Jenkins and all of these. None of these guys are on their roster right now that they netted from the Robert Griffin III trade. They're not even on the Rams football team right now. All right. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, look at what the Tennessee Titans did. They traded the number 2 pick in the draft, or was it they traded the number 1 pick in the draft? All right, and allowed the Rams to come up, and look what they were able to do. They got Derrick Henry, and they got Jack Conklin, and the list goes on and on. Jonnu Smith, and all of these guys that are key contributors on that Tennessee Titans team right now as we speak. That sounds great, but you know what? You have to hit on all of those guys, number 1, and that's number 2. Number 1, all right, they weren't staring Chase Young in the face. All right, Chase Young was not sitting on the board at 1 when the Titans decided to trade out. All right, they had a quarterback, or at least they thought they had a quarterback in Marcus Mariota, and the number 1 pick that year was going to be a quarterback, and there wasn't another guy that you were like, man, we'd love to take him at 1. You know, there wasn't another guy. You were either going to take Carson Wentz or Jared Goff at 1, and that was that. There wasn't a defensive player that got you salivating, that you felt like, if we don't take this guy, we're missing out on a guy that could change the game and wreck the NFL for years to come. That guy wasn't on the board in that draft with Goff and with Wentz. And so the Titans had an easy decision to make. Trade out of 1 because we already got a quarterback, and let's just get a bunch of picks and see what we can do with them. And they hit a ton of really good players. They hit a couple of home runs, couple of doubles in the gap. They did some really good work in that draft, right? That's what everyone wants to bring up when they start talking about what the Redskins could potentially do if they trade out of number 2. I will challenge you and say, look, you're not and look, Chase Young is no guarantee. He's not, all right? But neither is trading away number 2 and getting a bunch of picks. We've seen with the Redskins, and I hate to bring up the past, but the past is something that must be mentioned. We've seen the Redskins with a boatload of picks and what they've done with them in the past. Different group. I know, I understand that. And that's why I'm hesitant to bring it up, but it's worth noting. All right. All I'm saying to you is no Chase Young is no guarantee. No trading the number 2 pick and getting a bunch of picks and drafting those players. Those guys aren't guarantees. All I'm saying is the thought of potentially missing on a generational talent, you got to have those types of players in this league. You got to have guys that are difference makers. We don't have enough of those guys. All right? They're called blue chip players in this league. We don't have, how many blue chippers do we have on this team right now? We don't know. We're hoping that some of these first rounders that we've spent picks on, we're hoping that Terry McLaurin develops into, we're hoping a bunch of guys that we've spent draft capital on in the last 3 years develop into blue chippers. Terry McLaurin and Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne and Matt Ioannidis. We're hoping these guys are blue chippers. We're hoping that these guys, but we're not sure. You know, Dunny could be a blue chipper. We're not sure. We don't have one definite blue chipper on this team unless Trent Williams comes back. That was the only, him and Jordan Reed went healthy, and that was almost never. We're the only blue chippers that we had. Everybody else were guys that were complementary pieces. You need them on your team, but those aren't the guys that are going to push you over the top. We need more guys that push you over the top. Chase Young is one of those guys. I say you keep number 2 and you don't look back. What do you say? What do you think the Redskins should do with number 2? That is going to be the question from now until the draft. I want to hear what you say. And maybe your answer changes from here, what you leave in this comment section, till before we get to the draft. Maybe your opinion changes. But I want to know what you feel like now on January 29th as we sit here talking about the number 2 overall pick and Peter King and what he had to say. What do you think the Redskins should do with the number 2 overall pick? You've got my opinion. I'm dying to hear yours. Leave it in the comment section along with a like and, of course, a sub if you haven't already done so. I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. Remember, if you're watching this video on January 29th, we're going to be live tonight. The Redskins Report live, 9:30 p.m. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. And we'll talk about all these things. We'll talk about Greg Olsen potentially to Washington. We'll talk about the number 2 overall pick and any other topic that you guys want to discuss. The floor is yours. We'll chop it up and have a great time as we always do. Until then, though, you guys enjoy. Hopefully, you've had a chance to take a look at this so we can discuss it further a little bit later on tonight. You guys have a good one.
Louie T Network.